Go local for your footy. This is EFL Saturday. Let's jump straight into the warm-up.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's finally here. Spring has sprung, the sun is out, and it's grand final time in the Bendigo Bank Finals Series for 2018. And today, in the Division 4 grand final, we see two sides who it's fair to say have overcome their fair share of on-field hardships in the Whitehorse Pioneers and the Glen Waverley Hawks, who will be battling it out for premiership supremacy at Walker Park in Mitcham this afternoon. My name is Damien Watson. This is the pre-game show for the EFL Division 4 grand final, and we have a star-studded paddle today on this fine Saturday afternoon. First, I introduce a regular of the EFL Media team. He's become a cult figure, it must be said. Wayne Brasher. Good to see you, Brash.
Good afternoon, Damien Watson. Always good to be working with you, especially during the final series and on a grand final day. It's almost like we go back a bit, don't we, Damo? We've done this a few times, so we know what's to go around.
I tell you what, it doesn't matter how long we've been doing it. The feeling is the same,
It's exactly. You just can't help. You just love being part of any type of grand final day.
A coaching supremo, a man who knows all about the big stage of the Eastern Football League. He's coached many clubs over the time in the Eastern Footy League. Brett Davidson, good to welcome you on grand final day for Division 4.
Thanks, Damo. Thanks, Brash. Yeah, really looking forward to the game. It should be fantastic, and what better place than Walker Park?
It's a cauldron.
On a grand final day, on a beautiful day like today. It's certainly a sensational place to watch a game of football.
It's a great atmosphere, that's for sure. And speaking of a man who knows all about this occasion, he was here this time last year. I'm sure he'd love to be in the coach's box on grand final day, but he's stuck with us, unfortunately, but I'm sure he'll enjoy the occasion all the same. It's a real treat to welcome Forest Hill coach Martin Stillman to the pre-game. How are you, Martin?
Yeah, thanks, Damo. I would like to be down on the on the bench again today for the third year in a row, but the next best option is up here with you boys today. Really looking forward to the game, and the two best sides are definitely playing off today. And geez, the hair on the back of your neck stands up when you walk into Walker Park on a day like today. It's just an absolute spectacular day for the grand final. Eastern Footy League will be wrapped, and it's going to be a belter.
Absolutely, and I know you'll have one eye on the reserves today, which are currently underway at the moment in the third term, and your boys Forest Hill trailing by just 7 points in a tight contest against East Burwood, and the Rams are 5-7-37 to the Zebras 4-6-30. Let's jump straight into it, boys. The Whitehorse Pioneers and the Glen Waverley Hawks. And Brash, I know you've collated a lot of the stats for this game, and I get the feeling a lot of the central figures will surround that forward area for both sides. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do, Damo. And look, when I sent Martin the stats early in the week, one of the tweets that Martin put back where he was asked for an early opinion, and he said it's going to come down to the goal kickers. He feels that Glen Waverley Hawks may have the better goal kicking power. Well, I sort of on first impression, yes, the goals. The goal-kicking power of Glen Waverley Hawks, I think, does stand out at this early stage before getting into some of the other key performance indicators.
That's it. And Martin, I know you have a fair bit of experience in this area. Two sides who probably aren't used to on-field success on grand final day. It's a big day for both clubs. You've been in this situation before. What goes through the minds of the players and the coaching staff in the rooms at this stage of the afternoon, probably about an hour and a half before game time?
Yeah, as a coach, you try to keep it as normal as possible. It's funny enough, just driving in today, I think the calmest I've been in any game of football has been grand final day, and I firmly believe that as the coach, your demeanour rubs off on the players. If you're really uptight, and the players can just sense how calm you are, or if you're really uptight. So, look, when you get to the ground, your planning's done. You've picked your side, you've trained, all of your plans are in place, and what you hope is that the players can then fulfil, their end of the bargain and complete the game plan. And it's really just about preparing as normal. The first 5 or 10 minutes, the players won't have any air. They'll be gasping. It's like the first game of football for the season. The pressure, the intensity, and if you can settle early, get a goal or two on the board. And I'll just have a look through some stats. The last two grand finals, and I know the scorelines pretty well, 11 goals to 10. Go back to 2016, Ferntree Gully 11, Forest Hill 10. Last year, Donvale 10, Forest Hill 8, and go through Division 3, Park Orchards 12, Heathmont 9, Division 2, 10, 7, Division 1, 10, 7. So 10 goals might win you the game. And I was just having a look through. We'll talk about the goal kickers. I'll just have a look at Bradbury, and I'll talk to Jamie Carpenter all weekend when he comes in. I just reckon he's going to have to stand up, because the last 4 games against top 4 sides, Glen Waverley Hawks, no goals, Forest Hill, no goals, East Burwood, 1 goal, and Glen Waverley Hawks, no goals. So I think he's really going to have to be one to stand up. Otherwise, I think the Hawks will probably get up today.
There was probably another player too last year, Martin, that stood up for the Pioneers and kicked a lot of goals. Probably hasn't done so as much this year, but I rate him, if Padbury doesn't kick goals, I think this guy's going to have to lift his Joel Dalglish. I've known he's been playing up the ground, obviously, a little bit. He plays that centre half forward, roving ruckman in the forward line. That was one of the key players that I thought for the Pioneers this afternoon, who's going to have to step up to the plate a little bit if Padbury gets held.
Absolutely. I thought in the second semi-final, be interesting what Brett's thoughts were, but there was probably quite a few opportunities at the feet of Padbury. They had some talls back there. He's obviously a quality player, and I just felt that there was probably a couple of crumbing opportunities that they missed out on. So if they can capitalise there, and when Padbury kicked 5 against the Hawks earlier in the year, they won. So when he does kick 4 or 5 goals, East Burwood he kicked 6 early in the year, Glen Waverley Hawks kicked 5. They've won the game comfortably. When he's been held, they've really struggled, and I did notice he's pretty much their go-to avenue.
Yep.
So it'll be really interesting with Eddie and Dunn. If we play Glen Waverley, it might sound a bit negative, but I was going to put a run-with player on Eddie and Dunn, because they're so influential down back. And you watch today, Eddie will get the ball, he'll kick it back to Dunn, and I'll switch it through the other side. Those two will get 25 possessions and set up the rebound off half-back. Really critical, the Padbury, Eddie, Dunn matchups down back for sure.
Yeah, look, I've looked at the games. It's been interesting watching the Glen Waverley Hawk experience, I suppose, over the last number of years. And, the last time I called them in a final was, unfortunately, the North Ringwood grand final in third division, which really started the complete, I suppose, decline of the club for 1 or 2 years there, where a lot of players moved out, and then Flacky turned up and took over. And look, I rate him as a really top-notch coach. I think he's got a great structure. The thing I worry about with Glen Waverley Hawks, I'm tipping them, but the thing I worry about is that there's such a good transition side. This ground is not a great ground for real transition football. And if you look at, and Martin's brought it up, the amount of goals that get kicked on this ground in finals is because it is easy to clog up the areas.
Yeah.
It's very easy to clog up the areas, and really the only time that we've had a high scoring grand final in recent history is, I think, the last time maybe South Belgrave won here.
That's right, yeah.
And I think it was in overtime. I think it could have been against Forest Hill, I'm not sure, but it may have been.
Yeah, I think you're right. 2013, I think.
And that was when guys like Odermatt and that were playing, and they were able to break lines with their ability to run through lines and kick over lines. I don't see that in either of these two sides, their abilities to do that with their forwards. I think it'll be a 10 to 11 goal game myself, and I agree. If Padbury is not on song, where are their goals going to come from? And that's a real dilemma when you come to a grand final, because one thing I'm sure that they'll have done is done their homework on Padbury and the rest of those small forwards that they've got.
Absolutely, and Glen Waverley Hawks have got 5 goal kickers over 20 goals, and as a coach, it'd be a really interesting question for both coaches. What's your main concern coming into today in terms of the opposition and also players? Because if I was coaching against Glen Waverley Hawks and you've got 5 players that have kicked over 20 goals, you can shut 1 or 2 down, but there's 2 or 3 going to bob up. I just wonder today, Ferguson, you recruit players that have played AFL footy. This will be the day that I think he's going to stand up. He's a really good player, and when it comes to a big game, I think he's going to be a really big player today. But 5 goal kickers over 20, and then you go to Whitehorse. They've got to Mariani and Padbury. So if they lock down and shut those goal kickers out of the game, I'm like Brett. It's going to be really tough going for Whitehorse to kick goals. But finals, grand final score show 8 to 10 goals. You're right in the game. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I think too, another important player who we probably shouldn't undersell, and I think he's going to be a real key player for Whitehorse Pioneers in that back line's Alistair Quinn. Last week, he seems to have transitioned very well from Templestowe and really fitted very well into the Pioneers lineup. Does he get one of the key forward? Does he get Padbury?
Yeah, he could well do. I'm told reliably he's right up in their best and fairest. He's had a really good year, Quinny, and he's had some big scalps during the course of the year, and he took on Pimmy when we played them. So he's a very versatile player, can play ruck and key defence. But I think you're right. I think he might start down back, and I think if I was Jamie Carpenter, you'd like to just get control of the game early, not allow the Hawks to get 2 or 3 quick goals and get their momentum going, and be a real tight contest at quarter time, and then the game will roll out from there.
And I think you've got to remember that Quinn and Comedian,
yep,
both were Whitehorse players originally.
Yep.
Comedian was an outstanding centre half back, and Quinn was the key ruckman, and they were both basically the best in 4th Division at the time. Both made the transition across to Templestowe, and really. They played some good footy at Templestowe, but they didn't really stand up and star like they had previously.
Yep.
So coming back, I agree, they've had experience. They've played in 3rd Division finals. I think they're going to be 2 key players for them today, and there's a bit of versatility about both of them, which I like.
Sorry, Martin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the other boy that's been phenomenal since he's coming in from under-19s, and it's terrific. And again, we speak about the junior programs at EFL clubs, but Daniel Telleridi would probably win their best and fairest if he had been playing all 18 games, and played a bit of footy with his dad Dom, who was a super player. But Daniel is a really good half-back flanker, and dare I say it, if I was a Divi 1, Divi 2 club, I'd be looking very hard at him, because he is a really good player, and every game I've seen him, he's been getting better and better. So watch for Daniel today, number 13 off half-back. I'm sure he'll play another good game today.
Another player that I believe this afternoon, gentlemen, that's going to be pivotal for the Pioneers is Eddie Sim. Now, Eddie, I've watched Eddie a few times this year. He likes to play the game on his terms across the half-back line. Doesn't like to be accountable. Just likes to lumber along and do what he does best. Do they make him more accountable? Do Glen Waverley forwards have to work a lot harder this afternoon and put some time into Eddie Sim? Because he's also the other guy. You can throw him in the ruck, but he also can throw him forward if need be to kick goals. So he could be a hard matchup.
Well, remember that I think 2 or 3 before he left the club for the 1 year that he played Amos, I think, he was their key forward.
Yep.
He was their number 1 forward, so he can go forward. I think there's two X-Factor players. Look, there's lots of X-Factor players, but there's 2 that I see. I see Sim as being one. You just don't know what you're going to get, which means you've got to be careful.
Yep.
And the other ones are Min for Adam for Glen Waverley, who they're both X-Factor. You really don't know what you get, but I tell you what, if they're both on, watch out. They can both turn games of football. And in grand finals, to upset the apple cart with Sim going forward, how would that upset the structure of Glen Waverley Hawks with their back half? That would be an interesting thing. Is it robbing Peter to pay Paul by taking him out of that defensive unit? I don't know, but I think it's something that you'd have in the back of your mind as a maybe if you needed a spark.
Well, that would mean, Martin, then if Eddie Sim does go forward, then that means that splits that Eddie Dunn combination up a little bit, and that means one of them would have to actually, I would dare say, Jesse Dunn might have to go with Eddie Sim because of the height and the mobility that Eddie offers.
And that's the thing, as a coach, do you go with the standard and put the quality player behind the footy? As Brett said, you put your player forward and try and stretch their defence. I rate Eddie and Dunn that highly that for Whitehorse to win today, they've really got to stop their penetration off half-back. Dunn's basically the Luke Hodge of Glen Waverley Hawks. He's another coach on the ground. I was watching in the second semi-final and the prelim. He just directs traffic, and he's the master of getting everyone else to match up with a player and still being free. He'll be 30 metres behind the ball. They'll switch the play to him, and away they go. What Brett says is a really good thought because you get a goal or 2 through Sim. They're going to have to be more accountable. They can't zone zone off. So it is something definitely worthwhile considering for sure.
You mentioned Jesse Dunn before. He was on the EFL Insight podcast during the week, along with Maverick Gleed, of course, from the White Horse Pioneers. And you mentioned that there is a real possibility of it being a struggle based on recent history at this ground and the way these two sides play. Is there any possibility of anyone breaking ranks should the game or the need provide us with?
I think with any grand final, I know you can only, as a coach, Martin, you probably got to try and play the game on its merit, minute by minute. But sometimes there has to be hard decisions to be made. If an opposition player gets off the leash, you've got to be ready to pull the trigger, don't you?
Absolutely. You can't be reactive. You've just got to be on your game and. Yeah, it's one of those things as a coach, you just got to go with your gut at stages, and you're looking at rotations and all sorts of things. So you might run with your A-grade midfield for an extra 3 or 4 minutes because you're winning the ball out of the centre and you're scoring goals. It's all those sorts of intangibles, and Brett knows as a coach as well. At times you just got to go with your gut, and it just comes with a bit of experience and just a feel for the game. And look, as Brett said, Ryan Flack and Jamie Carpenter are both very good coaches. They've got really well-drilled teams. And they're going to play their way, and they'll probably only go to plan B. There'll be little tinkers here and there if a player gets off the leash, and I'm sure they've spoken about the key players they need to be mindful of. But, I expect Glen Waverley Hawks to go out and play their game, and so will Whitehorse. They'll back themselves in with the way they play.
And a lot of it comes down to, and I know this sounds silly, is where are you when you come to a grand final? Sometimes it's not like two even sides. I can remember coaching against Coldstream, and they were coming off 16 straight wins, and I decided to come from the first semi, who'd won a first semi by 3 points and a prelim by a point. So I knew that coming in, I'm up against a side that had beaten us easy the first 2 times during the year, and I was able to be a little bit more creative with what we did because I had nothing to lose. These two sides are coming in, and there's already not much between them. So they can't afford to do too many adjustments too early, but they'll find that as they go through, they'll tinker it as they go through.
Well, we're about to head to our first break. This is the pre-game show ahead of the Division 4 Grand Final between the White Horse Pioneers and the Glen Waverley Hawks. And the coach of the latter side, Ryan Flack, will join us after the break. Stay tuned. This is coverage of the Division 4 Grand Final between the White Horse Pioneers and Glen Waverley.
If you have ideas on how you want to be celebrated and you don't express them with others, they won't know. So you may not always get what you had in mind.
Yeah. I'm just thinking for my parents. I wouldn't want to do something that they wouldn't have wanted. And I don't know if they've put these plans in place.
Even simply, do they want to be buried or cremated?
Yeah.
Have an open and honest conversation with your loved ones and start pre-planning your funeral today. Find out more at tobinbrothers.com.au. Tobin Brothers Funerals, celebrating lives.
Program sponsor.
Nothing better than a companion to keep you up to date with all the latest when you're at the footy. Better still, one that fits in your back pocket. The Eastern Footballer is a must-read. All the latest information, team lists, feature articles and much, much more. Pick up your copy this weekend as you love it local across the Eastern Football League.
You need to find a field of premium potatoes, a deep-sea prawn trawler, and a herd of prime beef to create Australia's best steak meal. But the great thing is the Hog's Breath Cafe do it every day. So you only have to go to one place to enjoy the most tender, juicy prime rib, slow cooked for 18 hours until it's the most unbelievable steak you ever tasted. Hog's Breath Prime Rib, the best a steak can get, and only at the Hog's Breath Cafe.
Program sponsor.
EFL.org.au is the place to be online for all the latest on the Eastern Football League. Keep up to date by checking out the latest news and feature articles. Have your say in the EFL poll. Check out all the latest EFL videos, and best of all, you can listen back to any EFL radio program at any time. Head to efl.org.au. The Eastern Football League. Local footy at its best.
G'day, Billy Brownless here from The Footy Show. KFC Almost Footy Legends is back in 2018 and we're searching for the best highlights from local footy. Head to 9now.com.au/AFL Footy Show and upload your entry for a chance to win $35,000 cash plus a year's supply of KFC.
Program sponsor.
The warm-up continues right here on EFL Saturday.
Yes, welcome back to the warm-up from the Division 4 Grand Final, live from Walker Park in Mitcham for the big clash between the Whitehorse Pioneers and the Glen Waverley Hawks. We're all pumped. Martin Stillman is in the box with us, the Forest Hill senior coach, and a score update from the reserves where the Forest Hill side is playing against East Burwood. So 6:9:45 to Forest Hill 6:8:44, 21 minutes into the third term. So we have defibrillators on standby just in case it's a tight one. And you're free, of course, to go out and celebrate if the Zebras do get up. And Ryan Flack will join us, of course, later on in the pre-game. Any minute now, of course, the Glen Waverley Hawks senior coach.
Damo, one of the things I'm going to put to both Davo and Martin here, and I had a little bit of a think about this during the week. Second semi-final. Who gained the most out of that win? Now, my thoughts were that I reckon Glen Waverley Hawks took a lot more out of that loss than what I reckon Whitehorse gained from the win. I just thought that if Whitehorse get the game on their terms where they can lock it up and keep it to a low-scoring game, which they were able to, they get the points. But I reckon if the game opens up, to me, and I know that Glen Waverley Hawks know they didn't play that well that day. If they open the game up today, could get ugly very early.
What I would be saying if I was Flacky, we didn't play well. We lost by 2 points. We finished top of the ladder. We had the second chance, and that's why you finish top, so that if you do have a slip up, I think they kicked 1-5 or 1-6 in the last quarter. So you'd be going in saying we kick straight, we win the game. If you're Jamie Carpenter, you're saying, we've beaten them. We're just got to replicate that again in the grand final. And I was in the same boat 2016. Ferntree Gully hadn't won a game. No one beaten Ferntree Gully. They're 18 straight. We beat them by 20 points. And then you think, have you poked the bear? Or have we now got the belief that we can win? And that's what I had to say to the players all the time. We've beaten Ferntree Gully. We know what we need to do. We have to replicate that again the next week. So I think if you're looking at it from a positive perspective, from both coaches' perspective, Whitehorse, we've beaten them. We know we can beat them. And Glen Waverley Hawks, we didn't play our best footy, and they only beat us by 2 points. And that's all the psychological aspects as a coach you'd be putting to your players during the week.
That's right. It's a duplex effect, isn't it, Davo? It could go either way in terms of the mindset of both sides from that semi-final.
You can find so many pros and cons when you look at this sort of situation. You can read into everything. But I suppose Whitehorse got a week off, so they allowed them to rest a few tired bodies because it was a pretty physical game. But I agree, Glen Waverley Hawks would be looking and go, you know what, we played a very ordinary game of football here and lost by 2 points. One of the things about Glen Waverley that I just look at, it's my only concern, is that they are such a good transition side. They love it just a little bit bigger than this. Whereas this ground is perfect for Whitehorse. I think this is the perfect size ground for them. So do Glen Waverley adjust to that a little bit better today? I think they will. But it'll be very, very interesting. But I think you can read into it what you like. I think both coaches will be pretty happy with the fact that they're here and they want to have another crack at each other.
Since it's grand final day, and I'd like to touch on this point in terms of the history of both these two clubs, it'd be one of the great quirks, wouldn't it, if Glen Waverley lose today, because they get promoted anyway under the restructure. That happened in 2011 when they lost the grand final in extra time to Heathmont, and they still went up to Division 3 and played a grand final in Division 3 as well. So they've already played in 2 grand finals, and they've been promoted without actually winning a premiership. So I mean, it must be on the minds of the club today to prevail, even if they do get promoted.
Oh, without a doubt. And you're right, it was a quirk at the time, and it's another one this year.
And they've been the benefactors of that.
Yep.
And that's the thing, Davo. Sometimes when you haven't had luck and then all of a sudden some of it goes your way, you got to take it, don't you?
You do, and look, and they've worked really hard over the last number of years to get players back to the club, to build up their list. They've looked at the areas that they needed to strengthen on. They've been able to do that. But then you look at Whitehorse, and Whitehorse, apart from they've had patches over the last 15 to 20 years where they have been dominant. I think they went through, the last time they won their flag, they went through undefeated.
Have they been through different entities as a club in the way that they're named, etc.?
That's a good point. I think they were named something quite a few years ago, but they've certainly been very different sorts of clubs. And I just like, the thing that I've really been impressed with over the last couple of years is that they've really built their club through their kids. and they've brought so many. You look at their club; it's just full of their kids, and that's fantastic to see. And that's just going to augur well for them as they go forward as well.
Well, we touched on the history and the significance of this day for the Glen Waverley Hawks, and it's a real pleasure to welcome to the coverage their senior coach. He's obviously nervous, but it's great to have him on to give up his time, Ryan Flack. Welcome, Ryan.
How you going, guys?
Yeah, good, mate. What's the feeling like in the rooms at the moment? Is there a little tense, nervous energy, or are the boys excited?
Both, I think. They're really excited. But also, obviously, there's, you try and be pretty measured with how you go about it, but you can't, deny the fact that you turn up here and there's a lot more people, and the atmosphere's really good. So I think it's all a positive energy. The boys know what they've got to do, and hopefully we can deliver that today.
Blackie, congratulations. We're just talking before about the second semi-final and you guys kicking 1-5, 1-6 and missing by a couple of points. And as a coach, you'd be saying to the boys, look, we didn't play well and that's why we finished top, so we've got a double chance and have another crack at it. What's your main concern today, if any, with Whitehorse in terms of their game style or any individuals that you've really been focusing on during the course of the week?
I think they're a little bit like us. They're pretty even, so it's kind of hard to, I think, to put too many eggs into a certain basket. We obviously know that they've got a really strong on-ball brigade and that Padbury's a really dangerous forward, but I guess you can spend a lot of time focusing on that, and that probably does an injustice to the quality of the other players that they've got around. They've got some really good fast players on the outside as well. I think we need to match them inside the contest. There's no question about that. I think everyone that's watching will know that Whitehorse is, that's what they build their game around. So that's got to be a focus. So probably more so it's about our game style and how we go about it there than targeting people. That being said, we think Plan A for us has stood the test of time over the course of the year, and we're also really backing that. So, we'll focus on what we do really well, but be respectful of what they're going to bring.
And it's not that you've not wanted to play in a grand final the last 4 or 5 years since you've been there as the coach, but it really has been a gradual build, hasn't it, for the club and for yourself. How's your week been this week?
Yeah, so many emotions, a roller coaster of thoughts. So, I've been at this game pretty much in some coaching capacity, I think now 17 years.
Good maths on the run there.
Yeah, good maths on the run. And so, we have, unfortunately, I'm not the style of coach that tries to take players around and recruit really quickly and do things in a short-term capacity. It has been a slow build for us. It's been about developing what's probably 12 or 14 guys that are going to run out today that have been there, through the very lowest of times in my tenure and have made themselves better through hard work. And there's no doubt that we've sort of topped that off with a couple of quality players and recruits. I think we can't deny that, but that's the most pleasing thing for them, is to see how they've come through it all and the fact that they get their chance now to do what they've been longing to do for a long time. And that probably makes me feel really good about that journey we've been on.
Ryan, congratulations on making it to the grand final. Just having a look, we were just looking at the scores that have kicked in grand finals, and we know that they're low scoring. They are low scoring affairs, but on the other hand, it's all knowing what you know on what pass can deliver. Does it give you a little bit of comfort knowing that you've got quite a few blokes that can kick goals and kick big scores to win your games of football?
Yeah, I think that's something we've obviously got two really good goal kickers up there, but we've tried to structure it in a way that if those guys are being targeted or not having a great day, that we're not, focusing all our energy through there, and we've got some other avenues to goal. Pickering and Palapiano and Murray, and some of our midfielders can hit the scoreboard as well. I think Luke Broad and Josh McMillan have been kicking goals over the last couple of weeks. Paul Sinden can do that as well. So we want to be a team that's a bit hard to defend by being a bit diverse in that way. That being said, this ground is a pretty small ground and there's not a lot of room to manoeuvre. So it probably plays into the hands of defensive teams. And so there's two sides of the equation. And I think both teams today defend really well as well.
With that being said, being the smaller ground, is this a an afternoon where the centre half forward from both sides could actually miss out. So you'd have to probably keep an eye on that position and see and try and get your guy into the game early if you need to, just so that he gets a touch. That would be important, wouldn't it?
It is, yeah. Grounds like this, you do get bypassed. But that being said, I don't think that either side has got that big power marking centre half forward anyway. I think both of us have probably got good deep forwards, but guys that are pretty agile and move around at half forward. I think both teams are pretty similar. So
it may not be. The thing is, it might be actually a blessing in disguise that you don't have a key centre half forward in a grand final like this. You've got plenty of other guys that can run around and kick goals from the half forward line as well as your midfield.
Yeah, I think if you can find your way through the middle of the ground here, you've probably seen in all of the finals that at times teams have kicked goals running through the centre square and able to get on the end of a chain of handball. So there's different ways you can score, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to beating the guy who you're standing next to.
Yeah.
You can be really analytical and think too much about that, but the team that plays better today, in whatever manner that is, will win.
And we're just talking pre-game. Your captain, Jesse Dunn, and Eddie, they've been phenomenal players, and they set up so much of your attack from defence. Eddie missed last week. I know the answer's going to be he's 100%, but he's ready to go.
Yeah, he's 100%. Look, he had a corky, and it was just one of those ones that was a bit deep, and it was probably difficult for him to be fully mobile last week, but he comes in ready to go today, and he's a really good leader back there as well. He instructs, he's our assistant coach, so we're hoping to get the usual drive that we do out of him, and unfortunately that makes for a really difficult decision and conversations on selection night, but it's the bittersweet part of coaching.
It's just as well you didn't have the Collingwood medical team on his corky, otherwise he would have missed another 4 or 5 weeks.
Turn 3 into 8. Yeah.
I know you're obviously focusing mainly on the game, but do you have time at all this week, and do you go through it with the players to reflect on what the club has achieved? Because it's been a gradual progression over the last few weeks. It hasn't happened overnight, and obviously the club's shooting for its first premiership in its history. Does that significance hold true in the minds of the players?
I think they're aware of the journey. I think that you can't deny that. It's just part of our club thing. It's who we are. We all know that's been the struggle that we've been on. We did have a bit of a PowerPoint presentation the other night that just had some photos of the course of the year and things like that, which I guess pays homage a little bit to where we've come from and where we've got to. But I think the time for that, spending too much time on it, will be later. We're just trying to focus on what we've got to do today.
I think one of the things, just going on that point, there is a very fine line, Ryan, with regards to getting the players over the top and under the top there. When you're trying to win a premiership, sometimes trying to ram home the significance sometimes can work against you, not for you. You sort of want to underplay it a little bit so the guys have their own expectations leading into a game. You don't want a club expectation to overrule a personal expectation, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So we've probably spent a fair bit of time just trying to. It's really, really hard because guys get into this situation and they're focusing on what the outcome might look like.
Yeah. And
so to just try and spend our coaching time, investing on the inputs that allow you to get there, because all of that stuff will be great if you do the right thing while you're in it. So that's been the focus of our conversations, is about just bringing it back to the moment and the next thing that you've got to do, and we'll worry about the bigger picture later. So I don't think there's really any pressure. Our guys it's all a bit of a new experience to them, and they're just really keen to get into it and put their foot on the grand final stage.
This is a little bit like the Ammo situation this year, isn't it? In the fact that often in the Ammos you have 2 up. You make a grand final, you both go up. So really what happens is the club celebrates the going up because of the fact you make the grand final. So the club is celebrating that, and all the committee and all the president. The players then have the grand final. They have the premiership as their celebration. So you can nearly chunk it into 2 different areas, and this is the sort of thing you've got this year in some case. So I think it takes a little bit of pressure in some ways off the players, because often when it's just the premiership to go up, that's even greater pressure. You know, you've got that greater pressure that it's actually you're carrying the whole club to go further. But here, it's about your own individual or as a team group, celebrating what it is for the team. And, I think that's something that you can really invest in as a coach for today.
Yeah, I think we probably distilled it really simply by saying that last week we were taking care of the club's future. This week we're trying to take care of a bit of history, So it's our boys are really keen to leave a legacy. To them, they're aware of the fact that it's great for the club, but they've got a focus that they want to come here and do. And that was the first thing they were all saying after last week is, job's not done.
And I know we'll let you go because you've got your mind on other things, obviously. Just to finish from my perspective, Matthew Ferguson, I was just saying to the boys before, and Nick Murphy last year, we held him to 2 goals. He kicked another 2 in the last quarter from centre forward. I imagine this is why you recruited him. He's played AFL footy. I could have just imagined how good he's been around the group. So has he assisted you this week in terms of where he's been and just, the calmness on the group and just the focus on today and, as you said, the processes rather than looking at the end result?
He's been outstanding in that regard. Like, he's been a coach as well at a good level of local country footy, and he's the most unflappable character as well. So he doesn't just bring calmness because he's been there. He brings it because that's who he is. And so he always, or not always, but often just adds something to what I'm saying. And he's been a really great person to lean on and to add to what I've been doing this year. And even in our team meeting just then, he's just adding really good little bits of trying to keep the mood and focus there. So I'd expect it's great conditions for someone that plays the way he does today, and he's certainly had some grand final experience and success. So he knows what he's doing, and hopefully he can go out there and show why.
Well, Ryan, really appreciate you giving us a significant part of your time pre-game. Enjoy the occasion. Best of luck today.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Ryan Flack, the senior coach of the Glen Waverley Hawks, joining us in the warm-up show ahead of Glen Waverley tilting for their first flag ahead of the White Horse Pioneers this afternoon. He seemed cool, calm and collected,
He's a very shrewd operator, Ryan Flack. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He knows what he's doing. He gives you something, but he doesn't give you everything, and I don't mind that in a coach.
I find this the most difficult part of the day. Is this 15 minutes before they come out, you've had your meeting, you're maybe watching a bit of football that you don't really care about.
Is there much you can do at this point as a coach?
No, nothing, but you've got a week's lot of thoughts going around in your head. You're thinking about things that maybes and all that sort of stuff. Have I done this? Have I done that? So it's when that siren goes that I find the same thing as Martin. I find I just get really calm. The siren goes and it's a job and I'm there to do the job. But beforehand, I'm a little bit. This is when I rarely suffer from nerves, but if I've been nervous, it's this 15 minutes before they actually run out that I feel a little bit jittery. And then as soon as the siren goes on, I've never felt it.
You get your 10,000 steps up on your Fitbit, don't you, in that 15 minutes pacing
around? You just pace
around.
up and down.
Yeah, and especially if you've got nothing to watch. I mean, if it's not your side, reserves team in, you're looking at football but really not looking at football.
Well, Martin's got plenty to watch at the moment. Forest Hill have hit the front 11 minutes into the final term of the Reserves Grand Final. They're 8-9-57 over East Burwood, 7-10-52, and the chance going up as well. So the crowd certainly getting into this game. We'll take a break shortly. I just want to get your thoughts on the White Horse historical perspective. We spoke about Glen Waverley. I know Martin had the stats before. Of course, White Horse did win a flag. Their only flag, certainly in recent times, 2007. I think they went through in a canter, didn't they?
Yeah,
over
I think
100 points.
They went through
undefeated, didn't they?
And I think Jamie played in that flag too.
Yeah. And Mav Gleed, I think, as well. He was an 18-year-old at the time, and he's out there 11 years later today.
Yep, and look, and they were unbeatable at that time. And of course, they didn't lose that. They had a huge win over Heathmont. It's a big thing for their club, and as I said before, they've really been working incredibly hard over the last 3 or 4 years to bring their kids through. They've had a lot of talented kids come through the Colts. Whitehorse Colts, the YJFL, and now they've got a few of them to stay on. They've worked very hard on getting the right under-19s coach, and that's been, they've got a lot of good kids in their side today.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you the difference between Whitehorse last year finishing 10 goals behind in a prelim to playing off in a grand final is they've matured at men, and in our game we played against them in the second half of the year. Their physical approach to the player and the ball and their hardness and ferocity was unmatched, unparalleled. And I think last year they were very much an outside running team, very highly skilled, and some teams could probably just bully them a little bit. The Mariani boys were obviously recruited for a purpose, and I just think that they've just matured as a team, a little bit like Glen Waverley. They've had the core of that team there for a couple of years. They've added a few players that obviously they needed just to go to that next level. But they're a physical team. They're a good, hard, spreading side. But watch today. They'll be tackling, they'll be harassing, and they'll be right up in Glen Waverley's face. So it's going to be very interesting in those stoppages just to see who can bully their way out of those stoppages and get the ball going forward.
And there's a bit of yin and yang with them too. They've got 3 sets of brothers in the side too. And the thing is, then, look, we saw what it was like with the Crackers. There seems to be an unwritten, sense.
Telepathic communication.
Yeah, and look, I've seen the McDougall boys play together and the Batakos, and there is a little bit of something between them, and sometimes that's something you can't coach for or coach against. I think that's instinct, and the Mariani bring that another set to that, and you know what you're going to get with them. They love to run.
What's the X factor in terms of Flacky and the Glennie Hawks boys? The lure of being the first ever premiership team at Glen Waverley Hawks. I just think that might just be something else as well. That however many premierships they win in their history, this can be the day that they are the first team to have that pennant up on the wall, the premiership photo.
Can't take that away.
Ryan edges his name into folklore at the Hawks footy club and the 22 players. So that's pretty unique when you have got that ability to be the first ever premiership team, senior premiership team, and that just might be a little bit of an extra drive for them as well today, perhaps.
That's it. And before we head to the break, Dave, I want to ask you about the significance of these two sides making the grand final. They've been competitive year after year in recent times. Given they come from a private school area, etc., it's hard, obviously, to retain players. Whitehorse and Glen Waverley, is that a significant achievement from your perspective for both clubs? I
think it's more significant for Glen Waverley, to be honest, because they've really struggled. If you go looking at their history, under 19s, they've really struggled. When Flacky turned up, he changed.
Big exodus too.
He changed the way. He said, we're going with kids. We're just going to bring kids in. And if you look at their history of the way they've played their football over the last 4 years, they've gone from an outside running, quick, spread, and just run forward side, which he gave them their heads, and now they've learned how to defend. And now they've got bigger bodies, and it's a really good progression that you've seen. Whereas Whitehorse, as I've said, they've been distant from their junior club in some ways. They just haven't had that feed. Those kids have always gone somewhere else. But now they've seen that, if we come into this team, A, we're going to get picked in the seniors, and B, we're playing good football, and let's do it together as a group. And I think that's the strength of their group. They remind me a little bit, Whitehorse, not exactly of the Park Orchards type of young player, the ferocity at the football. They lift everyone around them by doing that, and you can see what Park Orchards have been able to do in the last couple of years. That might be Whitehorse as we go through. We'll just see.
We'll take a break. Jamie Carpenter, the senior coach of the Whitehorse Pioneers, to join us afterwards. This is the pre-game warm-up for the Division 4 Grand Final between the Whitehorse Pioneers and Glen Waverley Hawks.
You've all been to funerals of family members or friends, right? Do you start thinking about what you would want at your funeral? It's a bit like when you go to a wedding.
Yeah, that's right.
At what stage do you start planning?
Have an open and honest conversation with your loved ones. Celebrate your life the way you want, like I did with a fixed price funeral plan from Tobin Brothers Funerals. The price doesn't change and your life will be celebrated your way. Find out more at tobinbrothers.com.au. Tobin Brothers Funerals, celebrating lives.
Program sponsor.
EFL.org.au is the place to be online for all the latest on the Eastern Football League. Keep up to date by checking out the latest news and feature articles. Have your say in the EFL poll. Check out all the latest EFL videos, and best of all, you can listen back to any EFL radio program at any time. Head to efl.org.au. The Eastern Football League. Local footy at its best.
Kids eat free Mondays and Tuesdays for a limited time at Hog's Breath Cafe. Get out! When an adult dines at Hog's Breath Cafe, you also get a kids meal free. Select from any one of our special kids meal combos with a soft drink and ice cream. That's Hospitality. Mondays and Tuesdays for a limited time. So get in for our great kids meal deal. Kids eat free at Hog's Breath Cafe. Love you to join us. Call 1-800-HOGSTAR.
Chadston, Dandenong, Coringal, Knox Ozone, Water Gardens and Geelong. Come in and experience some Hospitality.
Program sponsor.
Nothing better than a companion to keep you up to date with all the latest when you're at the footy. Better still, one that fits in your back pocket. The Eastern Footballer is a must-read. All the latest information, team lists, feature articles and much, much more. Pick up your copy this weekend as you love it local across the Eastern Football League.
Hello, I'm Peter Hitchener. 9 News invites you to join our team nightly at 6 for Melbourne's #1 news. Tony Jones with the latest sport, including the footy, plus Lavinia Nixon's weather forecast. 9 News, proud supporter of the Eastern Football League.
Program sponsor.
The warm-up continues right here on EFL Saturday.
And welcome back to our live coverage of the Division 4 Grand Final of the Bendigo Bank EFL Final Series. It's pre-game time ahead of a big clash between the White Horse Pioneers and Glen Waverley Hawks. And speaking of a big clash, East Burwood have hit the front in the Reserves Grand Final. They're 8-13-61 over Forest Hill, 8-9-57, 18 and a half minutes into the final term. I get the feeling this is going to be a tight finish. Martin, are you confident at this point?
Yes, the boys will get up. They'll get a set of clearance, and Big Strawny, number 30, will take a clunk and kick a goal. So
yeah, Strawny, Lukey Strawn.
Yeah, he's a great young fella, Luke Strawn.
He's had injuries, hasn't he?
Yeah, look, we recruited him to be a foil with Pimmy, and he's missed half the season. Really good junior at Vermont, and kicked a lot of goals under 19s and up at Upper Gully. So, yeah, look forward to him next year getting really fit and having a good season.
Martin, you've coached against the Glen Waverley Hawks this season. How do you stop the presence of Adam Amim while also not losing your focus on the other significant amount of forwards that Glen Waverley have and that depth that they have? What's the best strategy, do you think, that Whitehorse can come up with this afternoon?
Well, Adam's a very good player. We've had a hard tag on him every time we've played. We used Dean Maguire, who's about my height, 5'10". But what I found worked really well, and some of our forward scouts watching Hawks in weeks prior to we played, Gav Willoughby was about 6'3", so Gav's very quick off the mark, taller than Amin, and a stronger body type. So a bigger body, as quick, worked pretty well. As East Burwood kick another goal, looks like they might be getting the premiership here. So, look, he's a very good player. Him one-on-one, his marking, his skills. So he only needs 4 opportunities and to kick 3 goals, 1. But I think a really strong body, and he's the sort of player that you really just have, in my opinion, put a player on and say, I don't care if you don't get a kick, just stop him today, because if he gets off the leash, he'll kick 4, 5 or 6. That's 4, 5 or 6 you've got to kick the other end. So to me, and it might sound negative, but there's some players you just have to say, we've got to clamp down, lock down and take him out of the game. If you can keep him into no goals or 1 goal, you're going to go a long way to winning the premiership. And the other guy who is a very good forward as well is obviously Ferguson. So if you can keep them to, say, 2 each, I reckon you're probably, Jamie Carter, I know you're saying, well, that's on par. Any more than that per player, then you're in a bit of strife, I think.
I think sometimes the biggest opponent for Adam Amin is Adam Amin.
True.
And the best way is exactly what Martin says. Put someone on him to shut him down. He can get very frustrated. He can lose his focus. If he's allowed to do his own thing, he is that X-factor player that's hard to stop. But if you can stop him doing any of those easy things, then he can go out of the game pretty quickly. The problem is you can't then think, oh, he's out of the game, I'm just going to play off him, because then he's likely to come back into the game.
And that's the point we spoke about, Brett, pre-game, that if you shut Amin down, there's another 4 blokes that have kicked over 20 goals. So you've got a lot of headaches. And I think what Ryan Flack said, both sides are going to play their way, and they're going to look at a defensive structure, and it's not just one player. But look, he is a match winner, and when you come to games such as this, I'm sure Jamie, in the back of his mind, if Amin gets off the leash, it's going to be really hard for them to win the game. So it's intriguing, isn't it? You come into a game and he mightn't kick a goal, and therefore the White Horse Pioneers will be right in the box seat. He kicks a goal a quarter, kicks 4 or 5, then you'd think the Glenny Hawks are probably going to get up.
One of the things I look at too, and the thing is we talk about rotations. Now, Martin, we just touched on that earlier. When your midfield or a particular player's got a purple patch and he's involved in a rotation, my feeling is you make hay while the sun shines and you get the most out of what you can with when they hit hot, because they may not get hot again throughout the match, because we know that when two sides play the way the game's played, there's going to be a side that dominates, but also the other side's going to get their moment in time where they have a patch. And I reckon sometimes rotations are made just because because someone's been off for 6.25 minutes, and then all of a sudden, the other bloke says, but he's been on for 9 minutes. Well, I'm thinking, well, hang on, if the guy that's been on for 9 minutes has kicked 2 goals and had 6 possessions, I'm not taking him off the ground just because of a bloody rotation. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to the art of coaching. And for example, Lucas Gibbons, really big bull for me in the midfield. There's been occasions where he's been off the ground for 2 or 3 minutes, or you just need him to keep going. If he's in the middle, he's about to rotate, and you go, no, let's leave him for another 3 or 4 minutes because we've had 2 or 3 clearances, we've kicked a couple of goals, we get another goal or 2, and we almost ice the game. So, look, I say to the players at senior footy, and I used to rotate the wings 3 ways, 6 by 6 by 6. And if the 2 wingmen, if I've had Johnson and Mowat just dominating, I'd say to the guy on the bench, just sit tight, give me 3 or 4 minutes, because if those boys are getting a lot of the footy, it's like cricket. You make 100 and there's 15 overs to go and the captain wants to retire or declare and go, oh, hang on, I'm on 100, I want to go out and make 150, because that's when you just, seeing it sweet and you just keep going. So that's the art of coaching, and rotations are there for a purpose. But I guarantee you one thing, if there's 2 or 3 points to go and it's a 22, 23 minute mark, both coaches have got their best 22 on, and they are just going hell for leather, because you're not rotating in the last 5 minutes. You want your match winners out in the ground when it counts.
And I think that's where you find your good coaches. I'll be honest, I've watched a fair bit of footy over the last couple of years where some people just get really stuck on that idea. Others are able to stand and watch the game and, as Martin said, just be able to read the game, be able to see what's going on, and then they can make that judgment call, and that's a really important thing to do. I agree with you, Brash. I think it's just absolutely ridiculous. And the other thing that happens a lot is that they spend that time, and we looked at a Bayswater last week. We had 7 blokes there, or 6 blokes standing there waiting to come on the field, but they couldn't get on because the ball had been over the other side for about 3 or 4 minutes. So, you've just got to read the game as it's going on, as it's playing, and rotations have got a part, but they shouldn't be the be-all and end-all.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Damo. What caught my eye, that I was up watching a Vermont game earlier in the season, and Vermont like to heavily rotate. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like I was hearing, and this was not only them, but from the other side, the players were complaining to the rotation guy on the bench. Oh, well, he's been on for 7 minutes, and I was supposed to be back on. And I'm thinking, really, guys, you need to stop thinking about just because you're involved in a rotation. What happens if your guy that you're supposed to be taking off's kicked 3 goals and had 10 possessions? You reckon the coach is going to take you up, bring you on because of guys hit form? Not on your nelly. That's the thing. Rotations, right? Yes, they're prevalent and they're required in this level because of the fact that the game style has changed so much. The coaches have had the training at the high level, Davo, and they're trying to bring all these new game plans in, which means you have to have rotation. But that doesn't mean that you take your best players off, or the players that are running simply hot off the ground, just because they're involved in a 6-minute rotation. I just find that absolutely incredibly naive and stupid.
Yeah. It's a classic trickle-down effect from the AFL, and we find that all the time. The AFL bring in something our coaches all look at it and they try and implement some of those things into the standard and levels that we've got here. But sometimes it just goes overboard. And, Martin was right. If he's got this situation, you're not going to take a bloke off the field in that situation. But I think we're going to get to our next special guest.
Indeed, and just before we do, you may have heard the siren in the background. East Burwood prevailed in the Division 4 Reserves Grand Final this afternoon by 9.67 to 58. And I'll tell you what, Martin will be down there consoling some of the boys. It's obviously hard, a grand final loss at any level, Dave.
Oh, yes, and that's one of those things. There's not a lot you can say, but you get around to each player and just congratulate them on their year and try and be as positive as you possibly can.
Indeed, and any situation where you lose a grand final, it's obviously hard to swallow, but the momentum and I suppose the drive from that grand final loss will fuel your side for the pre-season next year. But we're ahead of the big senior Division 4 grand final this afternoon, and it's great to welcome, really appreciate his time before a big game. The senior coach of the White Horse Pioneers, Jamie Carpenter, joins us in the warm-up. G'day, Jamie.
G'day, guys. Thanks for having me.
What's the feeling in the rooms, the mood amongst the club at the moment and the players? Is it tense? Is it nerve-wracking? Is it exciting?
I think it's all of the above. I'd probably touch more exciting than anything. So, yeah. We've only had about 3 or 4 of these guys playing a grand final, so it's their first time. So I've got a heavy focus on trying to settle the nerves and basically get the first touch or two, and then obviously work their way into the game.
You were pictured sitting down with the Premiership Cup in 2007 as a player in that team. I remember that game very, very well. Now you're standing up here as a coach. What's the difference in the feeling as being a player in a grand final compared with being a coach in a grand final?
Yeah, I've been asked this question a few times over the last week. As a player, I suppose you've only got to look after yourself. So as a coach, I've got 22 guys I've got to try and control at any given time, I should say. So, to be honest with you, it's very different.
And obviously it's a big game. It's exactly what we look for at the end of the season. Players are all ready for it. What is it that you're looking at Glen Waverley? You're looking at Glen Waverley Hawks. What is it that you need to do to stop them so that you're able to win this game?
We've got to stop their outside run. And them guys taking marks in our forward line. So the last couple of times we've played them, I think they've taken about 15 or 20 uncontested marks in our forward 50. So today we've got a plan in place, so hopefully that doesn't happen and the guys lower their eyes and hit up more targets.
Jamie, what have you think, Derek Shaw, you took over from Derek Shaw and obviously, look, he got White Horse into the finals and you've taken over. What's been the difference you feel this year between last year? Have you had any feedback from the players and what have they given you?
To be honest, like the list that I took over, it was a fantastic list. Obviously, they made it to a prelim last year. We've just injected a couple of key backs, a couple of key on ballers, and a backup ruckman, which I think's been the difference.
Everybody could please a couple of guys, Jamie, that we've talked about, and I think obviously Andrew Padbury's the go-to forward, but a couple of guys that I think are real pivotal in White Horse's success today is Eddie Sim and Joel Dalgleish, both bookends, centre half back, centre half forward. Those two are going to have to really be part of being probably your best 6 today.
Yeah, I'd say so. We've got about 7 or 8 guys with jobs to do. Joel's got the big job on Ferguson. It's a couple of goals he probably normally kicks, so we were a bit lucky. And at the other end, Ed's been fantastic for us all year. He's a big boy, he's hard to tackle, and whatever he does, the ball always keeps going forward. So.
And the other thing is with Eddie, that in the back of your mind that if your forwards are not kicking goals, he's another one that you can swing forward because he is a proven goal kicker.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just see how we go today in the first 20 minutes, and that's what's good about us because we've probably got about 7 or 8 guys that can go forward if we're struggling for goals.
How exciting is it for you to look down at your list and see all those boys that have come through the Colts structure and the Colts system in the juniors at the club, and now they're finally staying at the club and wanting to be part of the excitement that is White Horse at the moment?
It's fantastic actually. I was here this morning watching the under-19s and they had a great win. Like those guys train with us on a Thursday night. And to play like, I think
Getting close, everybody.
Guys like Mav, our captain, he was an 18-year-old when we won that grand final in 2007.
What a fantastic grand final that was in the Division 4
some pretty hard times,
between East Burwood and Forest Hill. A big round of applause for all the players who played today. There can only be one winner.
I don't think we've
and
seen
this year,
the best of. He's only a young bloke, but he's going to be a super player. But just these guys that are, as I say, have come.
To start off the presentations, I'd like to welcome Sue McMillan from the EFL board to present the best on ground today, the Blue Ribbon Medal, which goes to, from the East Burwood Football Club, Mitchell Donald. Fantastic game, Mitch. And now for the premiership medals for the winning side, starting with number 2, Jack Pre-Lorenzo. Number 6, Andrew Pudney. That's not. Number 8, Anthony Perry. Few player jumper changes on the sheet that I've got, so I do apologise for that. No boos needed on that. Nick Pre-Lorenzo, number 10. Ben Miller. Stephen Kennedy. Anthony Perry. Sorry, Anthony, I thought I did say your name. I don't know if it's coming through properly. Rhett Masters. Ryan Lapore. Chris Samios. Jacob McCarthy. Adam Day. Anthony Smith. Cody Lucas. Will O'Brien. Noah McCartan.
Division 4, C.
Justin Winder. Glenn Ford. Congratulations on having a Spencer Owen. Jacob Mulqueen. Henry Ross Stubbs. Mitchell Morris. Jonathan Spillis. And the head trainer, Alex Miras. The team manager, Susie Winder. The runner, Jason Dryden. Silver medalist, Mitch Donald. Craig O'Malley. Craig O'Malley. Is the captain. Stay up there, Craig. Stay up there, Craig. Your coach is about to come up. Harry Black. Like to ask Harry and Craig, whoever wants to take the mic, to have a talk about the year that was down at East Burwood.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say to Forest Hill, I'm sick to death of the sight of you. I think we can officially say that we have a rivalry. Great rivalries are built on great contests and great passion. And I think all our games have brought that this year. So thank you and congratulations on your game. To everyone at East Burwood, everyone, the supporters, the parents, the volunteers, the committee, the coaches, everyone who gives of their time, who never gave up when this club was on its knees, who stuck fat and worked hard. This is more for you than for anybody else. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much. Finally, to the players, I don't know how to thank you. I want this made clear. There were some boys who missed out today for one reason or another. They are as much a part of this win as anybody who took the field. And so to all of you, I say congratulations and thank you, because I didn't make you a premiership team. You made me a premiership coach, and I will be forever grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here is the Premiership Cup. Premiers, get up there, boys. East Burwood, Premier 2018. They really showed them how to play.
No, I agree with Brash. They probably could have won it by 6 or 7 goals, and they should have been 5 goals up at quarter time. They missed some very easy shots.
Yep.
Having said that, it was a great game of football, and Doncaster played the style of football that we know they can, and they bring teams back down to a certain level. I think Vermont will be out to make a point. There's been a lot of talk over the entire year about are they the real deal? What's going to happen in the final? They're a very, very strong side with a number of quality inclusions. I think they'll probably be too good for South Croydon, but don't be surprised if South Croydon get another crack at them later on in the year.
Yep.
Fair enough too, Martin.
Yeah, I think Vermont, obviously having a couple of years at Roval, I follow Division 1 pretty closely and still watch the boys' progress. Haven't seen a lot of Division 1 football, only what's been live streamed and bits and pieces on YouTube. But from what I can see and talking to a few boys around Division 1 football, I think Vermont will be a bit too strong today.
The one thing that Vermont have got this year, Damien, that they didn't have last year, is they got 3 quality key forwards. Now, we spoke about that here in this game. You might be able to hold 1 or 2 of them, but one of them's going to get off the leash. Now, if you're asking me who would I like to see get off the leash, I'd like to see Brett Eddy get off the leash because he's one of the more accurate goal kickers, and take nothing away. Jake Best and Andrew Ainger are good foils, but Jake Best tends to be a little inaccurate. So I'd rather take Eddie with 6 goals 1, 6 goals 2 than maybe a Jake Best with 3 goals 5.
Yeah, fair enough. I get the sense a lot of the outcome will depend on the forward structure for Vermont today, whether South Croydon can shut them down. Let's turn our attention to this game again, the Division 4 Grand Final here at Walker Park in Mitcham. Just quickly, Martin Stillman, you were down amongst the Forest Hill faithful in the Reserves Grand Final. Did you do a bit of consoling, a 9-point loss to East Burwood?
Yeah, it's becoming a bit of a habit at Walker Park for Forest Hill. I just spoke to Matt Peterson. Matt has been with me for 5 years at Roval and come across with me to Forest Hill. So they were extremely disappointed. What was it, 2 or 3 minutes to go, and they're 4 or 5 points up. So credit to East Burwood to kick 2 late goals and win in the manner that they did. So look, it's a combination of a number of emotions at the end of a grand final when you lose. There's players that will be playing for their last game. There's 32-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and they're really hard to win at any level. And it's just heartbreaking when you lose a grand final. And but that's football, and that's why they're so sweet when you win them, because they're bloody hard to win premierships.
Martin, with the restructure, obviously means that both East Burwood and Forest Hill will be in Division 4 next year. And I know 12 months down the track, things can be a little bit different, but you'd be a little disappointed next year if either one of these 2 sides are not playing off in a grand final, wouldn't you?
Yeah, look, it's really difficult. It's going to depend.
Things changed.
Yeah, and look, I think, I'm not sure, I haven't watched last week's game, but I would imagine, 2 weeks ago, our game against East Burwood, what Justin Cicluna needs to do, in my opinion, I've spoken with Justin about this, is get some young legs into the team.
Yeah.
We're recruited for the last year or 2, we've been thereabouts, and we're found wanting with leg speed, and there's a few players that are probably, to be fair, past their best footy. So Division 4 football isn't a retirement village anymore. You can't have blokes coming back on one leg and running around getting big money. Look at today's game. You've got young players, 22, 23, up to 27, peak of their football. They're young, they're fit, they run, they spread, and the Eastern Footy League's a fantastic competition, and Division 4 is still very, very good football. And
it's evolved, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think with the under-19s next year at Forest Hill, that's going to really assist them. And if I was Justin, I'd be starting to do a little bit of a Ryan Flack and really inject some youth and build for next year and beyond. But you would think with 2 of the Premier teams going up, Forest Hill should be around the top 4 again next year.
Does that mean that Justin may have to make some hard call decisions on some of the players that want to continue to play, and say, listen, look, you might have to play in the Magoos rather than playing the seniors because we want to give the young blokes a go?
Yeah, look, I think a few of the players have already made decisions themselves. There's a couple of older boys that are going to go overseas. There's a couple that will retire and maybe even just drop back to lower amateur ranks just to play with some mates. So there's going to be some change. I'm aware of half a dozen pretty good players that won't be at the club next year, and personally, I've said to the club that's not a bad thing to rejuvenate, and as Ryan Flack said earlier today, to really build a core group and have them come through together. So if it's a year of consolidation next year, that wouldn't be a bad thing. But I expect Forest Hill in the revamped competition to still be around the 4 and be a very competitive side next year.
You would say the same thing for East Burwood, Davo?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things that happens is that you can build for now or build for the future, and there are times when this is your one chance and you've got to try and take it, and there are other times where you go, you know what, it may not be us this year, it may not be us next year, but we're really going to be there in 3 years, and when we go up, we're going to be at the next level and be able to progress. So it's one of those, it's a really delicate thing to do, and it all depends on where the club's at whatever stage they're at. I can see exactly what Martin said with Forest Hill. I think if there's a few boys that are going to make the decision not to go on, and they that's their choice, he then has that opportunity to look at bringing some young, fresh legs in, which may reinvigorate the entire group, and they are going to be there next year. And, it may not be that they play on the last Saturday, but if they get finals into some young players, that's fantastic for the future. East Burwood, they've had a taste of it here, but they've got a few of their older boys playing in their reserves. So, they've got a tremendous group of under 17 boys coming through to their under 19s next year. Absolutely tremendous. So if they can keep them, it could be anything.